This is MoneyMind on CNA938. I'm Chewy Lynn with Stanley Leong. Well, ever since Singapore's Phase 2 reopening on the 19th of June, it was reported that more people have been getting infected with the coronavirus at workplaces here. Workplace infections have risen from 22% before Phase 2 to 36% now. And that's why the authorities have encouraged those who can continue to do so to keep working from home.
So it looks like working from home is set to continue for some time to come, speaking from personal experience. But I assume that introverts will be cheering about the news, but is staying home and having to work cheek by jowl with family members, is it really a dream come true for some people who rather enjoy some peace and quiet? I don't know if it's really more peaceful and quiet working from home, but on the other extreme, how will extroverts be coping without the social connections, the physical connections that you're able to make otherwise in the regular workplace setting? And if you're a manager, how can you continue to ensure that both your introverted and extroverted staff can stay engaged and motivated, all this while working from home?
Well, let's explore these issues with our guest today. She's Carina Rogerio, an associate trainer for Business Future Consulting. She's also the managing director and founder of CR, which offers business coaching, business strategy, and mediation services. If you'd like to join the conversation, call us at 669-11938 or text us at 963-11938. Thanks for joining us today, Carina. Would you say that introverts are thriving now because they can work from home, or do you think this only applies if the introverts live alone?
Thank you for having me, first of all, and thank you for the question. So indeed, one could be very tempted to think that introverts are in heaven right now, but as correctly put by Stanley, there is the workspace that they have at their home, which now for them might be perceived as easier because they don't have that much social interactions to conduct, but they are invaded by their family life if they have family with them at home. So it can be a catch-22 situation for them, because on one side it became better, but on the other side they have new rules or new routine to set up.
So would you say, Carina, that this whole work from home philosophy is really very much dependent, not as much on your personality type, whether you're introvert or extrovert, but really on the circumstances in your home environment?
Yes and no. The thing is, the personality will still play a contribution, because someone who is an introvert at work, he knew the routine societal behavior that he had to conduct to be accepted by the team, and he or she didn't have to do that. While at home, there was previously a routine too that the introvert could simply follow because it was becoming a societal behavior set up. And now everything changed and it had to reset up. So most of the time, people just try to cope as they could. And introverts, they might simply not have the first instinct to set expectations and sometimes even some rules or boundaries with their family members to make it smoother for them. While extroverts, they tend to be more vocal, so they also more vocal in their needs, so they might be more tempted to actually voice out, be it at work, the lack of interaction now, or with their family members, what they can do or what they don't wish to do with this new setup.
But still, I'm guessing that extroverts would not be particularly happy working from home. I'm sure there are a lot of social connections that they miss about being in the office.
Totally true. So the ones who really suffered firsthand from the working from home, I would say, would be extroverts, because simply they like the banter, they like the interaction. I like to compare introverts and extroverts a bit like a battery. Like extroverts, they charge battery when they are in a social environment, while an introvert depletes his battery. So by taking away the social interaction from working from home, they are missing that energy. And you will also observe those were the ones who are very keen in having visual meetings, video meetings. They want to have banter. They are reaching out to their colleagues or managers on a regular basis, simply because they have that need, be them being conscious about it or not. So as a manager, if you're managing an extrovert, you need to be aware of that and try to supply opportunities for the extrovert to have that relationship with their colleagues or with yourself as a manager.
Right, very interesting there. I guess if Lynn and I were part of that same battery, since we co-produce and present this show, I will be the plus sign and you be the minus sign, Lynn.
Yeah,
Do you think that's a good analogy?
my battery is half full right now. But Carina, so, considering the very different ways that introverts and extroverts cope with the situation, can you provide us some tips on how each group can make the most of the work from home situation?
Yes, sure. So there are obvious pitfalls, and the how to avoid those pitfalls will be different depending on the personality of your team members. So the first thing already is, as a manager, you need to identify which part of you would be more extrovert or introvert, because most probably you are projecting your preferences, be it as an introvert or an extrovert, in the way you are handling and managing your team right now. So just be aware of it. Ask yourself, am I more an extrovert or an introvert? And how has that been translating in the way I'm interacting with my team? Then the other thing as a manager is, the pitfalls to avoid is the constant interruptions. So actually, a lot of people thought working from home would be like peaceful and you are in your own space and you can get work done. What actually happened very much is like the constant interruption, be by texting or emails, or even a large amount of meetings that were added on simply because people wanted to interact and wanted to be seen and they want to be in the knowing. So there was a multitude of interruptions, not to mention even family interruptions. You are in your workplace, in your corner, in your office, but then you have the kid coming or the children coming or the elderly having some needs. So what you really need is to handle those interruptions. And it might sound counterintuitive, but it's really about setting boundaries. As an introvert, you might be happy with the work because you can say yes or no to the meetings. You are more in your space, but then you need to set boundaries and expectations with your other family members. Also, if you are more the withdrawn type, you may want to, and your manager isn't, or your team members, a majority of them are more extroverts, you might simply set up expectations with them when you are available, when you are not available, what are their needs, and what is good enough for everyone. So that would be really for the introvert and interruptions. For the extrovert, it would be to make sure they don't commit to every meeting because they want to have that social interaction, or they want to have the feeling they are seen or that they are in the knowing. So as a manager, you need to make sure that your team member, extrovert team member, is not saying yes to too many meetings or calls, which actually might deplete them from their energy simply because they don't get work done and they have to do eventually extra hours to compensate for it. So the second actually naturally leads to the 24-hour. Most of the people who have been working from home, they have been experiencing that they are working longer hours than before. And that is simply because also the setting of office hours became less clear. So you really need to, again, set expectations and boundaries. When are you working? When are you not working? And not be tempted to carry on even if things are not done. Because there is this physical beginning and ending of the day is not there. You need to create it. So that would be another pitfall to avoid. Then there is the other thing, which is a common topic we hear a lot, is procrastination. So you might be thinking eventually that procrastination would be more with the extroverts simply because they are missing out that social banter. So they don't feel like working, or they are pushing what they don't like to do as much because no one is watching. And actually it's in both. It's not only extroverts. Introverts, simply because they are in their world, they might also have a space where they are kind of hiding. And as a manager, of course, you don't want procrastination because work needs to be done. But as a manager, I would say you have to be mindful. Procrastination, especially since COVID-19, could also be an indication that people are feeling anxiety, and it could be a first sign of depression. So try to tackle procrastination more on a constructive and open conversation with them rather than making them wrong for it. And also look for signs of burnout or depression, because people might feel lonely even if they are surrounded by their family, simply because the structure that they were used to is no longer there.
Carina Rogerio is speaking with us here on MoneyMind on CNA938. Carina is an associate trainer for Business Future Consulting. She's also the managing director and founder of CR, which offers business coaching, business strategy, and mediation services. And if you've got a question for her, this is your chance to call through 669-11938. Text messages also can be sent through to 963-11938. Carina, would there be one group that may be perhaps more vulnerable in a work from home setting where they're not as able to be as productive as they would if they were to be in a physical office environment like in the pre-COVID-19 days? Would there be one group that would perform worse than the other, you think, in general?
In general, I would say the one group would be more visible in their struggle than the other one. The extrovert will be more visible simply because he or she tends to be more vocal. So they will actually, you will see their struggle, either because they are attending too many meetings because they are trying to compensate the social bender, or because simply they are being vocal about the struggles. But I wouldn't say that then it means that the introvert is more performant from working from home, because they actually, what I have been hearing from many clients is that it's hard for them to speak up about their struggles, or because they don't have the team members around them seeing them struggling or spending like the body language looking at something and they are struggling on a topic, they might not naturally reach out, and they might spend like 4 or 5 hours on something which could have taken maybe 20 minutes if they had a team member to reach out to ask. So I would say the difficulties and the challenges are different, and I wouldn't say that working from home will be easier to perform for one for the other. I think it's more from a manager point of view, it's more visible for you to see the challenges of the extrovert rather than the introvert. So you need to take an extra step in making sure you give space, and that is usually via one-to-one informal conversations with your introverts to find out, are they okay, and are they struggling, and how can you support them further?
Right, Carina, earlier you mentioned that there may be more people experiencing burnout because the number of working hours has not become so clear, and they might even be loaded with work after official working hours. And I think both introverts and extroverts might be afraid to set boundaries with their boss and tell them no. What's a nice way of telling your boss or reminding your boss that, look, it's after work hours now and I'd like to relax?
Yeah. So actually it always comes back to communication, because as I said, when we were in the office, everyone knew how to behave, because after so many years of working in an office, we all kind of have a routine. Working from home, you need to set up all that routine and the expectations, which everyone is thinking in a certain way of how it should be. So to reply to your question, it would be to have a conversation with your manager. When are you available? When are you not available? If, for instance, you are working with remote teams in different time zones, that you already agree with eventually your manager, which days of the week are you going to attend early or late meetings, and in compensation, when are you starting slightly later because of that, to compensate. And another way to really set up boundaries would be, actually, often managers don't even know, because they are not seeing their team members. So the visual thing is really important. They don't know how much you have on your plate, and sending out emails doesn't give you that perspective that you have in an office. You see how busy people are. So it's really about a little trick, which I am trying to suggest, is at the end of the week, Friday or early morning in Monday, send a summary email to your manager where you say what you did the last week, what you are working on this week. Eventually, if you have challenges, share with them, and the resources you need and the time you need. So it's really just giving them a snapshot of what are you working on and what is your intention for this week, such that they see your workload. For those who are not so much into emails, you can also set up simply like a 5-minute or 10-minute conversation at again, Friday or Monday, where you tell them verbally where you are at. And if everyone does that with their manager, the manager will have an idea of the workload of everyone, and he can better manage the team. So it's really about setting up rules that work for the team members and the manager on when to work, when not to work, who has a heavy workload, who is struggling, and being very transparent about it.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing these tips. We've been hearing from Carina Rogerio, Managing Director and founder of CR, that's spelled SEEARE. It offers business coaching, business strategy, and mediation services. If you'd like to find out more about what they do, head to their website at www.cr.co, that's SEEARE.co.